and we're thrilled to foster and host conversations with design leaders around the world. The SoDA series live is a collaboration between Adobe and the Society of Digital Agencies, and I'm Tom Beck, Executive Director of SoDA. I'm usually joined by my friend and colleague, Kristen Bell from Adobe, but she's taking a lovely trip with her mother and sister today in Charleston. So we're wishing them well and hope they eat lots of great food and have some good weather in Charleston. For today's conversation, we'll be chatting with Max Pinas from DEPT, but first let me introduce Talon Wadsworth from Adobe. Talon, hey Talon, how are you?
I'm doing well, and I think we have a grace period till at least February for saying Happy New Year.
I know. So. There's always that debate that I have is when do I cut that off in my email, messages. But I don't know if you've noticed too, but I feel like in the last few years with COVID that the new year seems to really be starting around January 15th or January 18th now.
Very true.
There's definitely not the hitting the ground running on January 2nd that I've seen in previous years. And I think that's probably a healthy thing.
I agree. And again, and also I'm actually in the Seattle office. I'm not in my usual spot. And of course, now seeing people for the first time, it does feel like this is now kind of like the actual start of the new year,
Exactly.
After sort of everybody's still kind of working in isolation. And now that I'm actually in the office, it does feel like, oh, this is when we start the new year.
Yeah, people are starting to finally come together. The team is getting assembled.
Yes, indeed.
Great to see you. And for those listening in and watching today, Talon is a principal designer at Adobe. He's been there for 12 years and works primarily across the creative workflows across all the products. And Talon has been hosting the SoDA series live since the beginning, and love to have him and love to have him guide these conversations.
Wow, the privilege to be here, Tom, and collaborating with you on this. And again, this is my favorite thing to do, which is just talk design. So
absolutely,
that's why I've been here for 12 years. So
absolutely, well, we love it too. And our guest today is Max Pinas from DEPT. DEPT, for those of you that don't know, is a digital innovation and design agency based in the Netherlands. They've acquired a number of other incredible design and digital studios and have really expanded their footprint. They're quite large and making a huge impact on the digital space, working with all the biggest brands that you can think of and doing some of the most innovative, progressive, interesting work out there today. And Max is an executive creative director at DEPT. And while he still is hands-on in many projects, he's also one of the go-to guys at DEPT for trends and innovation, keeping both internal teams, but also their clients up to speed on what's next. So Max, welcome today. It's a pleasure to have you, and thank you for carving out time to be with us.
Oh, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Talon. It's very cool to be here, and all you people watching. Hi.
So I'll quickly, in terms of logistics, for those of you in the audience, I'll be dropping off the camera and interacting within the LinkedIn Live comments thread. So if you have questions for the guests, please pose them, and I'll make sure that they get to Talon and Max, or make comments and converse with each other and just enjoy the conversation. We'll be spending a lot of time today talking about some new trends in immersive, Metaverse, Web3, as well as just lots of other facets of being a design leader in today's world. So thanks again to Max and Talon. I'll turn it back to you guys and have a great conversation today.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Max, it's such a pleasure to be here with you in, of course, what is my morning here on the West Coast, your evening there in Rotterdam. Really excited to talk with you. Like I said, one of the things that's really kept me here is really I've always been interested and excited about, how design work is changing, how visual communication is changing. And then, of course, then the tools that we use to go and to create that great work. That's just a cool problem space. So it's something that, again, why I've been here for as long as I have now. And so I'm really excited to chat with you today. So thanks for being with us.
Yeah, me as well. And I think it's really interesting topic to touch upon today, specifically talking about trends and innovation, because these tools, they are going bonkers right now, right? If you look at all the generative AI, but also prompt-based design. I mean, who would have known only like maybe a year ago? And at the same time, I still see the need for design, because we need to solve problems, right? And make people's life way more easy and better. And I think it's design and tech and culture, of course, but in that mixture, I think there's still a lot of work to do. And maybe to say one more thing, like because AI is really dominant right now in our world, but also at our customers and in the news and the press, and everybody's talking about all that stuff. But somebody said something funny to me, or important. It's not replacing us, right? It's replacing maybe part of the people not using it. But if you are on board, like you're on board with Adobe XD, or you're on board with your with mobile phones or social media. I mean, you could have said about these same things a couple of years ago, and I don't care about them. But they are just tools, right? And we are still the conductors of these tools.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I think that I've always felt that like designers have such a role to play when we're breaking into new platforms, new mediums of communication, new methods of collaboration and engagement. That's where designers are needed the most. Like they're usually the ones leading the charge out there in the forefront, really figuring out what are these spaces for? What are the types of communication or interactions are we now capable of? Whether it was the printing press, all the way through to the internet and digital communication, now all the way through into more immersive experiences, whether they be visual or non-visual, right? Like designers are always leading the way, and designers need tools to help them work better, right? Because the things that we're being asked to do have just increased in scale, right? Every time we make these leaps, again, a couple of years ago, we were designing, maybe a couple pages for a book, or maybe now a couple pages for a website, and now we're designing not just a website, but multiple channels of digital communication. And now we're sort of into these new spaces where the patterns aren't even established yet. And so we need tools to actually help us accelerate, our work and our thinking, in those spaces.
Yeah, I can't agree more. And what I also think is really interesting in what you just pointed out, especially the last part, is in these new worlds, also something else happened, I believe, for the first time for real. I mean, we always say you need to work in teams, and I cannot agree more. And you need a technologist, architect, designer, conceptor, strategist, business owner, product owner, all these people. And I agree 100%. But in all fairness and in all honesty, between design and technology, there was also some form of a gap. One side understood the other side, the other side understood the one side. And yes, when you're in a team, and yes, when you're in a huddle and working together and doing agile, you're working together. But still, it was hard because tech just takes more time. You can make something. And I'm not diminishing our work, because we need to think about stuff. But in the end, you can do something in an hour or in a day. And some tech stuff just takes weeks or months or even longer, because it just takes time. And I think now with all these new technologies, for the first time, we can understand each other better, because through these tools, we sort of are getting the same language. And we, as a designer, we have way faster ways now to experiment, to prototype, to just show, I mean this, opposed to like it's in our heads and we're sketching. And then the tech people know, like, okay, so we're going in that direction. Well, did you know? And then they can give you some pointers, like, well, then it's important. And then because we still need to do the detailing. We still need to figure out everything. But then you have sort of a language that you can talk to each other. And specifically in concepting and in prototyping and in presenting concepts, we now suddenly have the same tools. And I think this is really exciting, because real projects, good projects, if I'm not talking art, but like for end users, consumers, or business to business, you need these people working together. So
Yeah. No, you mentioned, language. I think that was such a key sort of, key word to sort of utilize, because, I have always been obsessed in my career with shortening that gap in translation, right? Because again, the size and the scale of the projects that we work on now today can't be handled by, one person, right? There's so much complexity involved and so much technical knowledge required, both on, the front end, the back end, the design, the sort of from the user perspective, and, shortening that gap in translation. When we say these words, this is what we mean, and we have a good, or at least a fundamental understanding of the capabilities, that can accelerate our work, right? And I think you're so right in that, the tools can enable, more efficient or more, communication, right, between those parties. And even saying that, like, I always think about also how, when you're bringing together very diverse skill sets, the ways in which they can push each other and really push the boundaries of what's technically possible, or what's, possible to even imagine, in these new spaces. I always think about how Flash, I think, looking back on it today, people might say, oh, well, Flash is dead, and it's it was past its time. But the web today has everything to thank Flash for. It was designers in Flash, they were pushing the modes of communication, the types of interactions forward, in on the web, when the technical capabilities weren't quite yet there. And of course, the web caught up, but it had to be pushed by those designers utilizing those tools that shorten that gap between what they could imagine and then what they could actually put into that medium.
Yeah, well, yeah, obviously Flash also pushed the whole skip intro movement. But having said
Fair, that is, there are a lot of other sides of that too. I agree.
But having said that, I agree, and I also some got old, but not all of them, and some are still energized from that era, like myself. And if you look at the Flash designers from back then working now, they are in motion design, they are in After Effects, they are doing 3D. So they're using the tools of today. So I 100% agree, and that's also a certain way of thinking and mindset that enables you to use these tools in that fashion. And yeah, Flash probably for the web started that thinking, similarly as game design is doing that as well. So that's almost 100%. The same type of influx I see happening right now. And the creative tech people, so that's more the young ones coming in school or coming from school, they are just intermixing everything like it's nothing. Like, oh, here you have 18 tools, let's use them today, and then they don't care.
Yeah, totally. Well, we jumped right into it, which I love. Of course, that's the me. I like to get into the weeds, but I actually want to take a step back because you mentioned sort of your experience with Flash, but I wanted to give people kind of an introduction to you and your journey. So tell us a little about your creative journey. Like, what got you to where you are today? What did that look like? As a creative, there in the design industry or field. How did you find yourself here? Tell us a little bit about your background and your journey.
Yeah. So I won't try to bore you too much, but I actually, when I was still in school, I started to organize parties, and they sort of became pretty big, like thousands of people, hundreds a year. Yeah. So that became a company when I was in school, but I stopped and started doing that. But what do parties need besides music and acts? They needed flyers and posters. And I started a business creating those not only for myself but also for all my competitors, because I thought, like, yeah, well, why not? They're here. So that's what the first thing I did. Then I went to into IT because I love the whole DTP stuff, desktop publishing. And fast forward, I started my own e-commerce company, and I started selling stuff. Then I started working from the parent company of DEPT. I went to Obama. sorry, I went to California in 2008, and then you had the Obama campaign. And that brings me to why I am what I am today, because I had all this digital stuff already pumped into me and also visual stuff. But I was there in 2007. You had the first iPhone. I had one of the first, and there was an app. There was an app of the Obama campaign on my phone because I personally liked it. I had no idea what he would become. And I visited LA, and then I got a push notification on my phone saying, from the campaign, you need to talk to somebody nearby and explain about Obama, and we have his contact details. And this was, I didn't know about location-based targeting, these concepts, and mapping it to me and to somebody else nearby. And I was like, my mind is blown. And I was doing commerce before. I was like, no, I want to do creative stuff, because if somebody came up with this, there's probably more to do. So that started journey to become what I am today.
Amazing.
To really look into brands, organizations, how can you connect to audiences and make it special and make it memorable and intrinsic value, like that moment I had in
And there's really, I like what you're saying in putting the pieces together of technological capabilities when it came to the device and the hardware and the connections, being, and how that information was being pieced together, via, the web, and then being able to then drive human interaction, through that. I think that's such a key thing. And again, something that I've always been, I think the best results of the work that I've done here has always been that, where there's an awareness of the technological capabilities. And then as you put those pieces together and work with your collaborators to enable new types of interactions or new types of sort of workflows or features kind of within a tool. I think that's really that resonates really with me.
Yeah. So same for me, and I'm quite obsessed with the virtualization of the world, and at the same time, the digital part, so the mixture of physical and digital. And I was talking about this this week about that in China, everybody pays with QR, right, in WeChat. And they were doing it for years and years and years and years. And we were all looking at it like, I don't know. I don't understand it. And this in 2015, everybody said QR is dead. It's like it's and it's some people do it, but that's Asia. That's not some. That's most of the people. But okay. Besides that, and then in 2017, iOS natively started supporting QR in its camera app. So before it worked, but you needed an app, and now suddenly you just need. So what does that mean? That means that you have a global translator, because suddenly everywhere you come in the world, you can connect with the services there. So there's one. And the second one, 2018, that was the year they started supporting native NFC in their phone, of passive NFC. So it was already there. That this is the iPhone XS, but it was already there from the iPhone 6. But what does that mean? The second they started supporting it, Android was already doing it, of course. Global pay. Everywhere you go, you can suddenly pay with your phone. And I mean, I'm not here to explain people that that's possible today, because everybody knows.
I mean, it's doing it.
But this was in 2018. Only started in 2018, and now it changed the world.
It changed how we interact with commerce, right? It changed how we interact with each other, right? And how we interact with the world around us. And I think that's we'll dig into it in a minute, but I'm interested in your take on again how those types of as we start to integrate these technologies, how it starts to open up sort of all these new sort of views of the world or views of that hidden world around us. But we'll get to that in a second. I wanted to ask specifically before we jump into that piece, which is, so you now lead the Metaverse group at DEPT. So tell us a little bit about that, about that group and your charter, and kind of, how you approach, leading that group and kind of what you do there.
Yeah. So quite early on in I got introduced as a Dutch agency, but we are global. We have about 4,000 people, 600
Wow.
or something in the Netherlands, but a lot more, for example, in the US, and also in the rest of Europe and in APAC. And we got into lockdown for myself in the Netherlands. That was in March 2020. We realized that, like, hey, it's all hands on deck, right? I don't know if you remember, but the global ad spend went down 90% in 1 week or
Yeah.
something, or 2
Yeah.
weeks. Yeah, I don't know what it was, but it was crazy. And we don't only live from ads, but it was apparent that we needed to find new ways to communicate. So we started to organize virtual events. So one of those was the massively successful Tomorrowland weekend, more than 1 million visitors, where you could go to a DJ dance event, but then virtually, because again, it wasn't allowed anymore. So this were one of the first things we did: Eurovision Song Festival and all kinds of stuff. And when we were doing these things, we saw, like, hey, probably we will get back to normal. We hope so, because that's better for people and the planet and our mental health. But probably also something else will happen, because we saw the flights of planes and all kinds of stuff. Everybody was talking, rightfully so, about their carbon footprint, and how that in some cities you suddenly could see mountains or the sea that you could normally never see because of all the smog. So we were thinking, like, probably a lot of companies and brands will say, after these lockdowns, some of this, not traveling, not polluting, is maybe a good thing. So let's dive deeper. Let's think about services that fit that new perspective. So we started the Web3, and in the Web, because there was also blockchain, NFT, consulting, and Metaverse. These are our three things. And we gathered within our group 300 people that specialize in these things, because we already had, like, weekly meetings and Slack channels and talking, but we suddenly realized we had 60 active Web3 projects, and we're like, that's a lot. That's like, we're specialized in this stuff. so we thought, like, let's focus all this energy, all that we've learned, and put it to good. Let's also give a little bit back, but also help brands to pioneer ahead, and help them grow also in this new space, because we are now in Web2 still, but we are floating into the Web3 domain. And I think it's the time now to sort, to look at, what do you need, what skill sets do you need, what tech do you need, what strategy, what concepts will work for you, because it needs to fit your DNA, right? It needs to fit your culture. And so that group is doing that right now. So we're putting out all kinds of stuff, from knowledge all the way to actual, just proper projects. To name one example, we have DEPT Labs, and DEPT Labs is a whole functioning portal. You can go there right now, where you can learn about Web3 through all kinds of videos and tests and stuff. And we just put it out there because we feel like we have a co-responsibility to help shape this new domain for the masses. Obviously, in the niche, there are specialists, there are experts, also besides us, that already understand this space very well. But I'm sitting in rooms every day trying to explain what it is.
Yeah, and you're right, like saying, and I think you reference, the integration of technology to then making it more widely accessible, and that's when we start to see that sea change happen, and it can happen very gradually over time, or it can happen very suddenly, as a lot of the things happened, with the pandemic. Like, we were working one way, and then we were working another way. And so I like where the charter, the team really feels like, both, taking on and tackling new projects, but really wrestling with, well, what are these technologies good for? And that's again where we back to the thing we kind of started talking about, which is design's role, right, in sort of pushing ahead, into taking our skill sets, and pushing ahead into these places where, again, we're not sure what they're for yet, but are we doing the work and wrestling with the problems so that we can start to have an idea, about what they might be good for, or once we sort of start to iterate on this, what else do we discover? What else is sort of waiting for us there, out there to be discovered?
I think that's really spot on. So if you go back, and we'll have example of today, but in the 80s, 90s, everybody said we don't need ads on internet because we have TV and paper, right?
Yeah,
but people were actually saying that. And in the 2000s, Amazon was struggling, like, who needs a book online? Because there's a bookstore, right? And in 2010, everybody was saying, why would I buy something on a mobile phone? Because I have a desktop, right? And this is, and then a couple of years later, everybody was saying social media, that's only for people that are taking selfies. This is all true, and this is all not even that long ago. And now, if I look at today, for example, we work for H&M, so that's the clothing retail chain. They have a couple of thousands of stores, but they also have a strong e-com. And they have one part of them is called H&M Beyond. That's a group within H&M. And what they do, and I applaud them for it, is like, we are a big brand, and we have massive amount of consumer touch points. But what will happen in a couple of years if this all goes on, if this virtualization goes on, if tokenization goes on, if decentralization goes on, what does virtual fashion goes on, what does that mean for our brand? So they cannot tell us, we cannot tell them, and they cannot tell us what will happen, because they don't have a glass ball, we don't have a glass ball. But what we can do is start iterating, start prototyping, start guessing. So one of the things that we did is create the H&M virtual showroom, where we have, so they have a sustainable line, and they do physical drops with them. We did before the physical drop, we did a digital drop with the same type of garments and vibe and feel, and you were there in a pretty realistically looking metaverse environment, not a real world, but our idea, like how a metaverse could look like in the future. So not real people, because I think that looks stupid, because then you get in the Erie County Valley. But and that worked out perfectly, because it learned them a lot. But also, how do we get garments into these spaces? How do we let people in and out? And how do we do drops in a hybrid, in a digital setup? So what's going on in the digital domain? What's going on in the physical domain? So they learned so much that for them, if they looked at their like literal ROI in money, I don't know. I have no idea. But if you look at it like, what did they learn, and how are they sorting for the future, they will be ahead of the pack when this will progress. And we are seeing, right? You can't deny that the whole AI and generative art and all that stuff, it's like almost escalating. It's going at crazy speeds. So these brands need to sort of prepare for it, and we help them with the designs, with the vibe, with how do you handle 3D motion, how do you bring that to actual desktops, mobiles, iPads, or whatever you use. How do you prep even for, let's say, Apple finally comes out with the Apple Glass AR thingy. If that happens, it's like all the boardrooms in the world will say, full stop, this is what we need to talk about. But then if you didn't prepare, you don't have content, you don't have 3D, you don't have teams, you don't have these these teams of tech and creatives that already understand the language of these new environments.
Yeah, 100%. And kind of stepping back a little bit, because you kind of mentioned, you referenced this, but kind of building on that question of these designers on your team and other places who are pushing into these new mediums and into these new modes of communication. What kind of skills do they have? Again, you referenced kind of again like the skill sets and the approach, but let's get a little more tactical for our audience here. Let's because again, a lot of I think people who are tuning in, or they're designers in the beginning of their careers, and they're looking at ways in which they can grow their careers and grow their skill sets. So yeah, why don't we dig into that a little bit? Tell us a little bit, like, what kind of skill sets do you look for and prioritize when it comes to building out your team and of these designers who are pushing into these new spaces and communicating in these new ways?
Yeah, it's interesting, and this is also something. So we're almost looking for jobs that nobody had a study for, nobody trained for, because
100%.
It's all new. Everything is new.
There's no program around it. Yeah.
No, it doesn't exist, and so we look for in our existing workforce, we have talented people that were always open for new things. So the Flash people and or whatever came before, we look at those. But it depends a bit on where are your strengths. So for example, you have designers that have the ability to really form teams and make them work together well. Yeah, you have those designers. You have designers that are very good conceptually, like it needs to work like this. There's like UI, UX combined kind of person, right? You have those. And you have those that say like, I will take every piece of tech I can and I will use it. So they are all going all in the 3D, on the Cinema 4D, the Blender stuff and whatever to train themselves. Then you have those that are good in video. So they are going After Effects and whatnot, right? So depending on what is your sort of forte, you will go one of those routes and then combine it with these new questions, because probably you will need one of those, and one of those to actually make a new world or a virtual showroom or an AR application about whatever, because it's a combination of these things. And I'm not seeing, and I would not even advise people that are able to do it all. I think it's way better that you have design taste and skills and fundamentals, and then specialize or in 3D or in concept or in strategy or in I don't know, metaverse worlds or gaming, or because you will be useful. I mean, we need those people. And what also I want to add one funny thing, like I was talking to school in photography and video, and they were like, yeah, but Max, is there still a place for us? Because, all ATL is going away and all this traditional stuff is going away. And I was like, this is a good question, but you will be surprised about my answer, because I said there is a very good place for you, because one thing will be missed if you and education like you, but also people that are schooled, that you school, is that you also need to have some fundamentals. So good video, good angles, good taste, good design, good use of space or typography. You can use any tool you like on the planet. If you don't understand how stuff needs to work or how it needs to look or what is aesthetically pleasing or is the correct fit for a brand, then all the tech, how good you are, it doesn't matter. It will still look ugly.
Yeah. That's a great point, and I 100% believe it. Again, I mean, might be a little biased. My background is much more of a design with a capital D. Focused on those fundamentals, and that I know that's helped me. In my work here, again, as I transition from more of the studio agencies world, into more of an in-house UX UI design. designer, but those fundamentals are still the foundation upon which all of the work has been built on, and that those skills are transferable. Like you said, like the fundamentals of visual communication or the fundamentals of visual language, right? Like those things can be the foundation upon which new paradigms, new innovations are founded. So I 100% agree with you. Kind of, getting back to, and this is an area that I, have been myself, dabbling with the AI art with Midjourney, my journey in Midjourney, sort of documenting right now. Tell us about your experience with the Midjourneys and the Dollies of the world, and how you're thinking about it and how it's impacting, how you work and maybe even how your team is currently working.
Yeah. Well, might be not of a surprise if we have 300 people only diving into Web3 already, just as their jobs, but it blew up. It's across the company. Also, our data scientists, also our people that are doing totally different stuff, are getting their hands on it, because it's like sort of like having a genie in a bottle, right? But then with unlimited questions. Questions. So that's a good thing. There are some other things I can be skeptical about, but I embrace it. But I think there's an ethics part. So there are some artists right now saying, "Hey, you click my name and it's my art, but I work on that for 30 years, and now you click and it's 1 second, but it's actually my IP." And I must say, to a certain degree, I agree. To a certain degree. So that's one thing. Another thing is, if imagery is being reused and it's not changed enough, then it's who's the owner? And I think that's an honest question. So for ourselves, to bring it back to us, we said, like, let's use it heavily when we concept, when we prototype, when we pitch, when we show our client what we feel is our direction, our thoughts about what we think, like, this is probably what feels good. So before, we needed to have a sketch artist in a pitch to say, like, this. Now we just use Midjourney and give a couple of commands, maybe use Stable Diffusion and Dolly as well in the same picture, rehash it a couple of times, because then you get more pretty results. That's how we use it. So we use it to for language, to communicate with tech, communicate with brands, with clients, and with our team. So people all understand this is where we're going. What we don't do is, okay, and put it on a poster, or put it in a banner, or put it in a commercial, or put it on a website and say it's done. Because then you get into the discussions I had before. And also, I believe it's good for direction, but you also need to perfect it yourself. So it's a buddy, it's a help. And I believe, I 100% believe it's a help. And I think it's a blessing, because suddenly, if you're not an illustrator, you can still show somebody what you mean without, having the most ugly, drawings and stuff. You can actually show it. So I think for that, it's brilliant. And I'm just so curious what will happen this year, because with Folly and with some of the other stuff, like, what will video is gonna be like, right? Because I'm seeing stuff happening there in betas, like, it's crazy.
I totally agree. I think it's going to be fascinating to see kind of like how basically the creative community wrestles with it, but not just the creative community, how the wider sort of culture and society sort of wrestles with the impact of that. And I like what you're saying about accelerating those early generation of ideas, or generating ideas that we can build language around, that we can have a really kind of like in-depth discussion. I've been obsessed with speed. Speed has been an obsession of mine, since I sort of began. I always felt, limited by the time that I had to be able to generate enough ideas and iterations so that I can get to a better end result, whatever that better is. It's never going to be perfect, but it's going to every subsequent idea or iteration is going to push me further than I would have gone before if I hadn't done any of that. And so, it really resonates with me how you're talking about sort of the integration of that in the early phases of the production of the creative process, where you're like, we just need to generate language, something that we can align upon, that we can form a foundation that then will springboard off of and take us into new directions that maybe we wouldn't have been able to before. I had that experience myself with when I started using Midjourney, of it showing me things
What did
that
you
I don't
do?
think I would have
You have an
reached on my own.
example? You have an example?
Oh, so I of course did the thing that like everybody did, which was like show me a thing in the style of another thing, which it's really good at, right? It can sort of grok those things and put it together. And honestly, I was looking for a visual style. I was looking for ideas for sort of conceptual for I'm kind of an illustrator on the side, so I was looking for something to really push my ideas just further than maybe the things that I'd been exposed to already. And I asked it to show me David Lynch's Dune in the style of Wes Anderson. So very sort of specific, very specific aesthetics and ideas and sort of vibes. And it started to generate these things that again were, yes, that was the starting point, but it was sort of an amalgamation of those. And it showed me, ideas that again I would never have considered on my own. That I would not have, like it would have taken me, longer to get there. And they became kind of the springboard to sort of begin to conceptualize kind of whether it was costume styles or hairstyles or sort of characters for on my own, that again I could really pushed me into new directions, directions I don't think I would have considered on my own. And so again, that was sort of the start of it. And I think I've been looking for ways. I think I've yet to really push it or see it with results in terms of like my role as a product designer. I think it's still, again, the models aren't being built on top of, UI design. The models are being built on top of, more visual, communication. So again, I don't think the models are there yet for UI design, but they're going to get there at some point. And I think they'll be interesting to see how it speeds up my process there. So
yeah, I really like your example, and I think this is for now. But I'm talking today, and I don't know about tomorrow. But for but for today, I think also for everybody listening in, other agencies, that's the way to go. Use it as a body for inspiration. Use it for speed, right? Use it to have a fork of directions, and then you still need your expertise to choose and make it better or redo it. But then at least you don't have all these weeks of grinding, because that the machine can do.
Yep. Here's a question for you, kind of related to this. So, what do you see as some of the potential downsides? Well, let's just say let's just take if we just keep taking it as is, and the Midjourney Reddit subreddit just keeps like churning out this thing in the style of this thing. What's the downside? Again, what if designers aren't using it in a thoughtful and deliberate way and folding into a much larger process? Like, what are some of the downsides that you might see sort of lurking there for us? Have you thought about that?
You have all kinds of different directions you could go there. I think so. Somebody at Harvard said something interesting. It was about ChatGPT, but I think it's the same for Midjourney.
Yeah.
And she said, we learn people to come up with ideas, and now they are becoming directors, or conductors, meaning you will lose the ability to generate original ideas yourself if you never ever do it. Because that's also something you need to train and keep alive. That's why children have more than we, because they do it more, right? So I think that it's maybe a bit philosophical, but I think that's the main thing. And I think we should not lose it, because then the next question will be in a couple of years, why are you here? So, and I think it always needs to be a body. you should have your value and your originality, because all these variances, one started with an artist or one started with somebody that had an idea, and that was a person. So I think it's good that AI is here, but please also keep creating yourself. And I
Yes.
think
Yeah.
we should not replace creators with just variances. And that would
Great
be
point.
I mean there are more like practical things, but I think this is the most important.
Yeah, that really resonates with me. I listened to an interview about automation. Again, it wasn't about creative, mid journey style or even chat GPT style automation. It was just about automation kind of writ large. And the interviewer, again, it was a very pessimistic conversation, but the interviewer came back with a question that I thought kind of put the person who was being interviewed kind of on their heels a little bit. And it was a very insightful question, which is like, well, what we're really good at as humans is telling stories and informing meaning, out of those stories. And we could decide that that the results from all these, sort of AI systems that are built upon existing models, right? So it's pulling off a set of data that is already existing, right? And if we just keep churning on top of that, we're not telling any new stories, right? We're
Yeah,
not coming up with new ideas of value, or new ideas of excitement and originality, right? Like our course of human history has been us evolving and telling each other new stories and deciding what is valuable now versus what was valuable 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And so I think that fits right into what you're kind of saying here, which is that back to even like with the dribblization, of design, that if people are sort of riffing on variations of an existing model, we're not evolving, we're not moving into new territory, and we're not telling each other new stories and defining what visual communication will look like, in the next 5, 10, 20, 50 years. That we're always going to, we're creative people, we're creative human beings, and we thrive in pushing into new territory and telling each other new stories and evolving our own story alongside of it.
yeah. So I agree, and just to add on, but I'm not saying do not use it. I'm
Yeah,
saying like
exactly.
use it as an aid and not as a replacement. So
Yeah.
needs to support what you're doing and not replace what you're doing.
Yeah, 100%. Well, cool. Well, man, we are like quickly running out of time. So I wanted to get some questions from the audience because we had some good ones come in. So I'm going to go here at the start because Joseph Mango dropped this in just a few minutes ago. What's your view of a codeless future and the role of a creative technologist kind of within that? When tools are accelerating, like you were saying, I think we talked about this kind of earlier in our conversation, shortening the gap between design concept and technical implementation. Do you see that in the future, those two things merging? And then what in that future does the role of a creative technologist play?
Yeah, so in the far future, I can't tell you because if AI becomes almost sentient, then it's a different story. But in short term, my answer would be exactly the same as we just said. So, but just replace technology with creative or art or with content. It's all the same. So, yes, there is no use for simple calendar selector developers that can only make that. Because yes, we can ask the AI and it will like a 1 second and it's without any errors. And no, we don't need anybody to check your code anymore at some level because the AI will do it. I also totally agree. But having said that, I think to have a thorough understanding of code and have a view of the future and have original ideas, again, it's the same answer. You still would need these people that actually know what they're doing, because otherwise the system will create a system, but that will be always a variance of what it was. It will never be something new. So that is my take on that. I do think the whole manual labor, simple things in coding, that will be not that important anymore. So it will be a little bit smarter than it was on the low level. But I think that's a bright future for the developers, because they also, yesterday I was talking with a lead architect, and he had so many ideas. But yeah, he's always doing the low level stuff, and now suddenly he can go a little bit more to the front, because we are now talking the same language. But I will still need him to connect the systems, to have new things, new ideas. I think it will be a very long time before that will be totally replaced.
Yeah, no, great point. That's like, we make a mistake in saying that, like, again, like all these automation and all these tools that are coming online, again, are helping accelerate our work on existing patterns within existing models and systems.
And that's good,
right?
That's good.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
It's valuable.
Yeah.
But it's not the end all be all. That this will be ideally a springboard upon which we are able to create yet even newer models and newer patterns, right, on top of. So,
or to explain simply, like, you don't have to create the basis of an app anymore. No, hamburger there, login there, but still there needs to be something original in there, because otherwise we won't need the app. So, and there something maybe magic will happen, like with AR, with recognition of imagery, or combine this with that, and then suddenly that technologies will make sense. Just to add one thing to the question, because I love the question. I do think the role will be valuable. So that codeless creative technologists that understand architectures, that understand the visual part, and understand the business part. I think the conductor role, sort of the product owner, new style that actually also is getting involved in doing things, that will be an interesting job. Powerful.
A little bit more detailed. But do you see new design? This is from Melissa. Oh no! Okay, we're back.
Hey, I got thrown out. Sorry.
Me too. I think we all did. I think it just like kicked us all. StreamYard. Oh, okay. Well, I hope we're up on LinkedIn. I hope that all the connection is in place. But instead of doing that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shortcut to my last and favorite question here, which I always. What are a few things that are keeping you inspired? Like the things that you look to for sources of inspiration, right now, and the things like it can be some of the things that we talked about already, or it could be your diverse interests even outside of that. What are the things that keep you inspired right now?
Yeah, well, it's such of a diverse nature. I think a lot is around. I think I'm obsessed with the emergence of real world applicable AI, because I've done trend sessions almost all my life, every year, and every year it was like, and AI is going to be big, but the things that are going on right now, and the combinations, and the startups, and the young people that come up with stuff, it just literally blows my mind. And so, funnily enough, I get books can't keep up with this stuff. So so I'm on Medium. We have multiple Slack channels within DEPT, Web3, JetGPT, pioneering, and all kinds of stuff. And we have a DEPT daily. Every day, we have something called the Zebra. The nerdy Zebra will post all the most important things going on in the world, so you can click on it. And I have a couple of WhatsApp groups that also put this information. And on TikTok, I subscribe to a lot of futurists. I think TikTok is fantastic. I get up in the morning and they start explaining to me. And when I like something, and that would be my advice, because a lot of a lot. So you actually we can talk about this all day long. But a lot of people, they go like, how do you know this stuff, right? The problem ask you as well. And I say, like, when I see something, when you get a WhatsApp or a Slack or see it on TikTok, you probably take it for face value. But I literally take the words, put it in ChatGPT or in Google, and look for the information and dive deep. I'm gonna read the whole whatever half an hour read is, an hour read about one simple topic, and I will do that every day of the year, all year. And that makes it that I am innovation in my head because I love it. And because we're running out of time, I just want to say, I saw also in my LinkedIn, it's my tagline, but I always say the future is here and finally I'm home.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Well, what's great, and I love that you said that. Like, I think that the advice I always give is exactly in line with what you're saying, which is like the things that lead us here, that get us excited and passionate, is staying curious, and then being engaged and driving a broader awareness. And those things, while they might not have immediate impact in your work, they influence it, and they influence the direction of all your future work. And so if we can all stay curious and inspired by the world around us and the things going on, and opening ourselves up to new ideas and experiences, like we're going to grow. We're going to grow as individuals, as creatives, and as a creative community as on the whole. And I think that's a great sort of inspirational note to kind of wrap up. So
can I say one last thing? You know what I think is really inspirational? Gen Z and my kids, they are Gen Z. They're teenagers, and I would advise everybody that's my age or maybe your age that listen to that generation. Listen to them, because they are freaking fantastic.
I 100% agree. I have a few myself. Well, cool. Well, Max, oh my gosh, it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for such a great conversation. Tom, always thank you so much for giving us the platform upon which to have this amazing conversation. And everyone in the chat, thank you so much for engaging with us and being with us this morning. I'm sorry we didn't get to all your questions there. Again, I just love to get in the weeds, and sometimes the time just flies. So.
No worries at all. Yes, thank you, Talon and Max. It was a great discussion. I sense we could have gone on for another hour. So, Max, we're probably going to have you back on the show at some point. But really appreciate you being here. Thanks for everyone in the audience. Appreciate your participation and questions. And we hope to see you next month. The next SoDA series live will be Thursday, February 23rd. We're still working on the guests, so look for updates on LinkedIn for that. But we'll hope to see you next month. And thanks again, everyone. And Talon and Max, have a great day. We'll see you all soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.